Welcome to the Alignment Blueprint. I'm your host, Callie. I'm a holistic life and business strategist. I also happen to be extremely passionate about holistic healing and growth. With over 13 years of experience, I've worked with clients from all walks of life. I also know living an authentically aligned life in business and in health can be a little overwhelming. I'm here to break it down for you and take you on my journey to authentic alignment. Remember, the materials and content within this podcast are intended as general information only and are not to be considered a substitute for medical advice or treatment. Hello, and welcome back to the Alignment Blueprint. I am here with Cristy, and I'm very excited about it because I just love her. How are you today, Cristy?
I'm so excited. It is astounding to me. So much of my job is talking to people that I love, whether that's like coaching or clients and designing or being on podcasts or hosting podcasts, like connecting with people who are so big-hearted and creative and committed to like something that is different than what people think normal life is just the greatest surprise and delight of my life every day.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. What a way to start the show or the episode, whatever it's called. I don't know what these things are called anymore.
Kelly, you're doing a show. For sure it's a show.
Show, okay. All right. Well, I usually start with having whoever I'm talking to, if I'm talking to someone, introduce themselves because I think it's really important that it comes from you because you know yourself best. So can you tell me a little bit about you?
Sure. Sometimes I think we know ourselves best. Sometimes I think we're like have the cloudiest view, like it's up too close, you know?
My
Um,
glasses are dirty.
yes, but today I think I can do it. So I have taken such a roundabout way to becoming predominantly a business designer of my own things, but also for other people. So creating digital ecosystems, brands, websites, course platforms, really even the guts and core of businesses. So an offer suite that you really love that combines everywhere that you've been and kind of all of your strengths and geniuses into a marketable suite. And then in addition to that, in addition to the services that I do for people, I also host community. And I have a few like secret, not secret, other businesses that I work on designing for myself. So that is mostly though the soup that I steep in every day
I
is
love it.
designing businesses from the structure to the stuff that makes it pretty and amplifies your energy and like the visual brand that is magnetic and catches people's eye.
Yeah, I love that you said creating digital ecosystems.
Oh yeah, that's my thing.
That was beautiful.
It's like I'm a copywriter too or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are you?
Yeah.
I know. Um, so I guess my next question would be, where did this all start? Where did it come
Mm,
from?
hmm Um, so I guess my origin story of, in a sense, really lines up with the core premise of your show of seeking alignment, because I don't think that is really a set it and forget it thing. And I think that so many really service-oriented, heart-centered, entrepreneurial women, they think that out of alignment is that they're like trying to like cheat people or like offer something like if they were out of alignment, they'd be offering something that they don't really believe in. Like they often turn alignment back in on themselves. And what I think we see most in women like that out of alignment, myself included in the past, is like not charging enough, not like owning their expertise, not having a business model that's designed to actually like make the money that they need or enjoy their life, like all of that sort of thing, I think is more out of alignment than trying to like pull the wool over people's eyes or all those kind of nefarious things that you think about. It's really about valuing yourself and your life more. So I guess my winding road to this is that through my 20s and early 30s, I think of myself as kind of a grand adventurer. I was a school teacher. I taught high school English, and also I would kind of quit periodically and like go back to school. I went back and did a master's in like post-colonial literature. I ran a school in the Ecuadorian jungle. I like lived in the rainforest. I lived at a hotel in Polynesia and like right to the beach and did my yoga teacher training. And so even before I was a traditional full-time entrepreneur, I was still really like a seeker and a wanderer in a sense. And then I really kind of looked around and thought about what an opportunity there was. I saw so many people who were living outside the traditional structure of like going to a job every day. So my teaching career, when I ended, I had the exact schedule that I wanted. I was coaching varsity sport. Like I had everything that I wanted in a job. I had my dream job. It was deeply fulfilling and I loved it. And it was really easy at that point. And people would ask like, and now you're going to go. Okay. And I was just like, well, number one, like mastery is a little boring sometimes. And number two, I want to see if I can make something where I don't have to go to the same place every day. And I think it's really interesting that we can compare ourselves so much in like the online space. And yet, like that first impulse that most people feel of like, if they can do it, I think I can do it. I think we should hold that a little more strongly. It is like, I have been a personal growth inner work junkie since, I don't know, I was probably in junior high, maybe earlier. And I think I always would have picked this because it's such a PhD experience in your own stuff. Like you just have to work through so much of your stuff of asking for money or visibility and putting yourself out there and kind of owning the audacity of feeling those voices maybe saying like, who does she think she is? And having to just keep going past that. So go ahead.
Do you think being the wanderer made you a better entrepreneur?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I think like I had that framework then of like, what are we really doing here? I prioritized my own growth over everything really in a time where all of my friends and everything were like saving for a mortgage and buying houses. And I'm not dismissing like financial responsibility and stability because I think that there comes a point where we have to reckon with that either way. But that has been a fairly easy thing for me to come back to, even in struggles of business, of growth over comfort. Like who I am becoming, who I become through this is paramount to me.
Yeah.
So when I quit teaching, I started a tech company first, and that taught me a lot of lessons about kind of the inner guts of things. And I was in like Silicon Valley venture capitalist accelerators and looking at things in a combination of ways, from the actual nuts and bolts and profit and loss sheets and strategy from people that are like, I don't care about your visualization for your life, and then combining my natural propensity toward looking at the spiritual and the alignment and the energetics of everything that we're doing. I think it took me definitely a few years, and I think it's an ongoing process for all of us to kind of integrate those together. But then that's where we kind of touch into this place of a different level of power and creation, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question would be from that, what does alignment feel like to you? Like specifically for you, what does it feel like in your body?
I think like, I guess going back to, it's been a minute since I would consider myself a yoga teacher for sure. But if we're looking at that from a really somatic sense, when we're in alignment, we tap into a level of power without effort, you know, like when things are aligned in your body in a yoga pose and an asana, you can like sustain it or hold it or like relax into your structure without so much like efforting and gutting through it. And that's what alignment feels like to me, is this mix of forward momentum of action and also without, I guess, I want to say over efforting, because there's a lot of times where it's a lot of effort.
Oh yeah.
But without depletion, without extraction in the same way. It feels like those two things work in harmony to really amplify and multiply the results and the forward momentum and progress of what you're doing.
Yeah. I always say that like doing the work, the behind the scenes work on yourself is it is work. It's hard work, but it's the easiest hard work you'll ever do because
Mm-hmm.
it's so worth it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think in tandem with I think you have to really know yourself, like,
Mm,
and what your default is. Like I could stay and meditate and visualize and journal for 1,000 years. And so um my place of growth is to take that into actual like grounded practical world action of like,
yeah.
okay, then what do I do with this dream? Then, how do I talk to people about it? How do I do that scary thing? And then there's some people that really default into the overaction, and often it's in stuff that doesn't really matter or move the needle, but the doing is comfortable. And
Mm,
then the work is like the pause, the unraveling, unweaving, like storying and creating a new paradigm.
yeah. Great. That's great. I think for me, alignment is a feeling of like I just feel whole.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Mm-hmm.
so whole and full and peaceful. And that's what I want for my life. And that's also really lines up with my definition of success is those things. Like I want to be present with my daughter. I want to have a peaceful life. I want to have a loving life. I want to always leave with love over fear. Like those are my definitions of success. So I'm wondering for you if you have because I always tell my clients to define their own version of success, right? Like I don't care if it's to have a beautiful house with 30 acres and a mansion and beautiful cars and whatever. And I don't care if it's to have a house in the woods and whatever you want. I don't care if it's any of that, but I wonder what your definition of success is, and is it a feeling more than a tangible thing?
Mm-hmm. I want to kind of go back to the alignment with that a little bit, because I loved what you said about be present with your daughter. There was like a spaciousness in what you said your definition of success was, and I think that's really tied into alignment. Is I work with a lot of women who always think that they're the problem, but not in a helpful way. Like if I just worked harder, if I just sacrificed more. And like that is where that alignment piece comes in too, is that you're actually out of alignment if all you're doing is working on your business
Mhm.
without having those moments of presence, without allowing yourself the spaciousness for the beingness of humanity, for those relationships that make it all worth it, for the white space to just have no pressure to just be out
Mhm.
in the world, to do the other things that you care about. And so if the model doesn't support that, like if the only way it works is if you like pitch a perfect game, have a super productive 10-hour workday every day, then that's out of alignment because it doesn't honor like the wholeness of who you are.
Yeah.
And I can forget this often, where I can say something like, in 1 week, like just after I do this, then I'll be able to like breathe, take care of
Mhm.
myself, whatever it is. And like we take so much more powerful actions, and they're felt more powerfully when we bring the wholeness of us, which needs to not have to do stuff all the time, that allows for the facts that like sometimes it's just going to take longer than we think and we're not behind. And we also need to like read a little and wander a little and get our feet in the grass and all those things that remind us of the totality of our bodies and souls. So for me, it's like a ding, ding, ding. I'm not all here if I'm not like riding my horses. Like that is a good
Yeah.
signal to me of the health of my business because that means I feel like I have enough energy to go do that. It means I'm remembering that this isn't all of my life.
It
And
shouldn't be
that my
in my,
life is, yeah, that my life is happening right now. It's
yeah.
not like, oh, I make my business and then I get to live. Like that is the paradigm that most of us are like, seems off to me. So how rich is the rest of my life kind of shows me my alignment and my definition of success. And can I play with taking more and more powerful actions? I guess that would be success to me in the sense of, can I amplify what I'm doing by hiring? Can I amplify what I'm doing by, instead of doing a bunch of like little things, doing the one bigger scary thing that's really going to move the needle?
Yeah.
Like that's, I guess, the game that I'm playing with myself is um, how can I take more and more powerful actions? And how can I like watch those pay off, see if they do like combine and alchemize my actions and my energy to bigger and bigger results. And that sounds super lame. Like that
Yeah.
sounds
It
maybe
doesn't.
bro-ish to say results, but that is a whole gamut of things. It's not just how much money it makes me, but staying in that sweet spot of energy and action, um, and looking at it as play of like, all I'm doing here is like seeing how much I can make. And not just a dollar sign,
Love
but
that.
how much in the world. Like that is success to me.
How much impact you can make.
Yeah. Or like how big I can grow this company. Like I have a company that doesn't have my name attached to it, And that's kind of fun. It's like, it's still me, but it's not me. Like, how much can I grow that? How many
Yeah.
people can I talk to? How many tiny moments of impact can I have? Like all of it. It's the
It's
game.
beautiful. You were saying about a big action, I think was the word you used. Um, or yeah, I think it was that. What is if you want to share, you don't have to if you don't want to, but what's an example of that for you?
Okay. Like a most powerful action.
Yeah, the powerful action. I think that's what you said.
Yeah. So, um, like something that's fun and easy that I want to do often is I call it procrastinabrand. Like I want to make something look really pretty. And I'm a brand designer, okay? Like I
Yeah.
agree in all the prettiness, but sometimes I know I'm fiddling because I don't want to like send the email. Because then what if people are like, oh, she's in here again, she's bothering us. Like, who does she think? Like, if I'm just fiddling, I don't have to deal with that. Or even say, I'm really playing with my relationship to social media right now. And I just often can find a more powerful action that is different than social media. And that feels really good
Okay.
to me right now. This is not me like saying all social media is bad, but sometimes I'm like, ooh, is there like a cheat code here that I can actually have more strong results from doing something more targeted and specific? So, for example, I'm like prepping a cold pitch for something this week it's going to be a bunch of time up front, but that one payoff would be like revenue far different than, I don't know, people signing up for my program, which I love too. But it's like that really powerful action. And usually it makes you grapple with a lot of things. Like, what if they think it's so weird? What if I put on all this time and nothing happens? Like, often the most powerful actions have some leverage to them, and that means there's a possible downside. Like, there's an inherent risk in it too.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so often we can think of like all the other tiny things with no risk that we'd rather do. Whereas like talking about your offer on your Instagram stories or sending out the email or pitching a podcast, those are the things that actually make a difference, but they also generally make us uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
They do. And I think that's important though, that we recognize that it makes us uncomfortable because that's probably the space where we're going to grow.
For sure. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
getting out of your comfort zone and is where the magic happens, in my opinion.
hmm And also like there's the growth in it, and it might take us a few to feel comfortable there. Like I started my tech company cold pitching like in an outrageously audacious way. And I sort of forgot until a couple of weeks ago. And then I was like, why am I stressed about this thing that I'm doing? Like I did that. And when we have so many of those moments together, it's not scary. Like when I started doing anything under my own name, like the thought of talking on my Instagram stories made me feel like I was going to throw up. Like I like could not, it seemed like the most terrible thing to me in the world. And usually when we're builders, we also forget about how far we've climbed already. And
Mhm.
so that can be so important for our growth, is to look back and be like, I already did all of these things. Like I'm not standing at the bottom of the mountain looking up. I'm somewhere in the middle. I've already climbed a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and going back to your definitions of alignment and success, in order to bring our whole selves and to live a life also outside of our business, it requires us to like look at constraints. And I love that, because if we're like looking at, I actually only want to work 6 hours a day, or like
Mhm.
4 hours a day, whatever it is to you, and it requires us to prioritize the stuff that actually does something. Like we don't have time to fiddle if we're like looking at that constraint of, I actually want to go hiking this weekend. So I can't plan on like just puttering on my business. I have to do the things that matter. Get my podcast out, write my email, like whatever that is for you.
Yeah,
Hire this person. Like the constraints can be a really beautiful invitation for us to grow and look at where we're spending our time and energy.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love that you said about the working hours and things like that and fitting life into it, basically, because making life a priority, I think, is just really important
Mm-hmm.
over the business. And what I work with on my clients is an aligned day. So instead of an ideal day, kind of switch it to an aligned day. And it would
Mm-hmm.
be like your dream day
Mm-hmm.
or actually working. Because I mean, the whole point is hopefully to have a business that and a life that you've dreamt of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we'll go through and we get really clear on how many hours we actually want to work so we can put our life first. So, like, is it working 4 hours? Is it working 6 hours? Is it working 3 hours? Is it working 1 hour? Whatever it is. And then we'll put in there what the self-care work we're doing is, what we're doing with our kids, what we're doing with this or that or the other thing. And then we'll feel into the feelings around that and how that truly feels in our body to
Mm-hmm.
have that kind of day. And then I'll have them revisit it. But I love that you said that because it aligns perfectly with my aligned day exercise that I do with clients.
And I love that you touched on like both the inhale and exhale of that. So often we focus on our output with, which I think is like the exhale, without looking at like where are those moments of inhale. So also you want to have more powerful exhales, then those inhales have to be more powerful too. So I am in a big season of blooming right now. I just got like a risky amount of irons in the fire. Not like, but like on the edge. I'm like, this is
That's good.
okay.
Yeah.
And I love it. It makes me so excited. I have such a range of things to work on. And I have to ask that question of like, okay, so I'm gonna do this. That's huge outputs. Then where are my inhales? Where am I
Hmm.
like totally switched off? Where am I like not doing this at all? Where am I getting enough sleep? Or caring for my body. It's like really looking at yourself as like the central asset that makes it all work.
We are the center of the universe in our life and our business, in my opinion. We keep, we have to take care of ourselves first.
Mhm.
We have to do for us first.
Yeah. And it's such like a female socialization thing to just expect more of ourselves. Like if I was just better, then I would also have my house would be perfectly clean and I would meal prep better. Like we're always looking for the ways that we fall short instead of like protecting ourselves differently. Like, you know what, I'm not getting done cleaning my dang house. Like, is there room somewhere where I can like find support for that instead of always feeling like we're at fault for there not being enough of us to go around?
So that makes me think of something about help. I think that women don't ask for help because some women do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like pumping everybody in. I think people in general don't ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because it can be seen as a weakness if you can't do it all. I'm interested to know how you feel about that. Because you had mentioned about the hiring that, like maybe hiring someone to help clean or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's super important personally to
Mm-hmm.
have people help you and have a community and a village.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna go back to like even early wandering Cristy. Okay. So this is my master's. I was doing a lot of like women's study. I took a class in feminist geography, okay? And you're like, that sounds like a made up thing. But it actually changed my life. So we looked back at like when we moved from kind of a village model in like the practical lived communal sense of how streets are lined up. And it's really in the 50s that like cul-de-sacs and suburbs take effect with walls and that people are parking in the back. They're not like parking in the front, even where you have so much less neighbor interaction. Then you look at how we're living now compared to the 50s, and you're like, you don't have to go in the bank. You can drive through food. Like we can live such an isolated life. And it is so beautiful that we can connect on the internet. I am like a big hermit slash I have a lot of internet friends and they totally count. And like the moving away from community really has done very little but make us like neurotic, unsupported, like less energized. Like there's this big correlation between communities changing like that and women's mental health just tanking. So obviously it doesn't just affect women, but I think both you and I serve predominantly women. And so it's a really like this lie of you should be able to do it all perfectly and make it look all perfect on the outside all by yourself is a very recent lie. And so when I think about when I have a tendency is to like, I should be better, I should be able to do this on my own, I can often look at it as a revolutionary act to choose a different way because we know that across the world, countries, areas where they're very communally focused are so much healthier. And like we know this, there's no debate about that. And so choosing a different way all the time and asking for help is modeling to so many other people.
Have you heard? Authentic Alignment, the Business Accelerator, is open for enrollment. In this small, tight-knit container of like-minded female entrepreneurs, you will gain the foundation and growth to start or scale your woman-owned business to one of wild abundance. With weekly calls, our specialized healing component, individualized support, and lifetime access, we have co-created a container like no other. Feeling the call? We are here and we are waiting for you. Need more one-on-one support? Rise Up, my 6-month life and business mentorship, is accepting applications. This is a container where impact meets income. Have questions? Head to my website, callitony.com/riseup.
Actually, my accountant, I love her. She was telling me how she also rides horses. We both like compete. And she was saying how she had childcare during the day, and a lot of it was so that she could ride horses. And she's a trainer and everything. And she's like, I know people have so much feelings about that. They're like, you don't have that much, you only have 3 kids, like you should be able to do it all by yourself. But she's like, I'm a better mom that I have time to like go do stuff by myself. And I also work, even though she
100%.
works from home. And I just was thanking her of like, do you know how important it is that you're doing this and you're speaking it out loud? Like
Mm-hmm.
it makes people feel like, oh, I'm allowed to be supportive, whether that's paid, unpaid, being in community. Um, that is often a really missing piece if you feel like you're doing all the things and not growing, not moving where you want to, is being with other people who demonstrate through their energy, their actions, that it's okay, like modeling a different way and holding that vision for you and for each other can really change everything.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important to it's so true when you say about other parts of the world that live in community more so than what we do and how much healthier they are. Because I watched that Blue Zone
Mm-hmm,
documentary on Netflix,
mm-hmm,
and all of them were living in community from what
mm-hmm,
I saw on it.
mm-hmm,
And it's so important to ask for help and to do things for yourself and to hire out help when you need to and when you can. And to do what you're really excellent at and what fills your cup the most. And let someone else do what they're really excellent at and what fills their cup the most.
mm-hmm,
Instead of feeling like you have to do it all. And I think that's a big part of living in an alignment is realizing what fills your cup the most and what brings you the most joy and peace and ease. And
mm-hmm,
then doing more of that and letting other people handle other things and
mm-hmm,
not having to do and be everything to everyone all the time, which also is a part of setting boundaries, which I had to learn the hard way how to set boundaries. And I don't know how you feel about boundaries, but they were not my friend for a long time. And now they've
mm-hmm,
become pretty solid friends of mine.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes. And like the thing about, I'm just assuming because I know you, is that the people that you work with are also generous and open-hearted and they want to like help people and have an impact. And there, it's so interesting. We were kind of raised on, if you were a personal development junkie, raised on really male leaders giving advice. So um, there's this attitude of like you need to have a servant's heart and help people. And I read so many leadership books about that, like be the hardest worker in the room, all these sorts of things. And I was like, got it, I have it. And the beginning of my tech company, this will sound absolutely ridiculous, which it was. I wanted to be like that. Like I wanted to be the kind of
Mhm.
leader who was putting her money where her mouth was, etc. So I would start my day in air quotes, start my day with one of the girls that was working remotely. And you would usually start working around 9. So I would work in parallel with her. I didn't want her to feel like she was working and I wasn't doing anything. And then I had another girl that would start at like 2. So I would work with her. I didn't want her to feel like she was working and I was doing nothing. And then my developers overseas would start and no one else could like go back and forth with them. So I would stay up with them until like 3 in the morning. So like when I say that out loud, you're like, dummy, big dumb dummy. And it was from this kind of this ethos of like putting yourself after everybody. And then I realized for the women that I serve and you serve, like they wouldn't dream of extracting from other people, but we have a tendency to self-extract all the time.
All the
And
time.
so that learning edge is really learning to own prioritizing you as a person too. And it was never the people. They were like, Cristy, take a break. We're good. Like we can handle this. And that was a really hard lesson that I had to learn. And I watch my clients learn is like your work is worth something. You don't have to overgive so everyone else is okay if you're not.
Uh-oh.
And I think that internal shift in boundaries, like my work matters, my life matters, like all those things can be really hard. And that often it's less of like setting up rules for everyone and more of this internal shift of holding yourself, your space, your energy sacred, just as sacred as everybody else. Like that's always where I start is like, what if I didn't even ask you to value yourself more than everybody, but just as much?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I do say that often that I tried to help clients set boundaries even with themselves
Yeah.
because I think I was the hardest person that I had to set a boundary with.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to let people down. I wasn't letting anybody down, but in my mind, I was going to let people down
Yeah.
and they were going to leave or whatever. But it
Mhm.
didn't happen like that. It was the total opposite. They respected me more because I set that boundary.
Mhm. Totally.
So, um, I'm wondering, and usually I ask this question differently, but I want to know just from early wanderer Cristy, tech company Cristy, and Cristy now, if all three of you were sitting at a table together,
We are all the time. Yes. But
what are you
yes,
saying?
sequentially.
What are you saying to each other?
Mm. That's such a good question. I love this. I was talking about a version of this with a friend the other day. And my early wanderer, Christy, would tell me to chill out about my feelings about milestones or landmarks, like the feeling. I can get really into a couple stories, which is I should be farther along by now
Yes.
and I should have known better. Those are
Mm-hmm.
my two big ones. In my 20s, Christy would have been so much more generous about it because she rarely had a responsible plan at all. You know, she was just showing up places, making it work. Can't be that hard. Get busy living, get busy dying. Like all the metrics that people think matter don't matter. So she would really tell this version of me to relax. I would tell her probably to like we could err a little bit more on the responsible side, you know, like you could keep a better handle on all the things and like plan for future me a little bit more, but that's how it went down. And tech company Christy, like 6 years ago, Christy, I probably had the most compassion for because she didn't know. And so many of us step into things and beat ourselves up with not knowing the things that we couldn't know until we knew them. Like we learned
Mm-hmm.
by doing. And so going from I was teaching school right in and then stepped right into the realm of like software development and like um investment agreements and shareholding and venture capitalism and I was trying to learn like 10
Everything.
different jobs at once. And usually I would meet with people and they'd be like, hold on, you mostly did this yourself. People don't do that. And I still felt like a failure like all the time.
Yeah.
And that was like such good learning time. Like there's so much like compost and fruitfulness that came out of that. And um something I've noticed because I'm obviously, of course, like a big podcast junkie, and I love the before and after stories of like what's the origin story of Sarah Blakely or like somebody that's started
Mm-hmm.
made a really huge company. And often they'll talk about like, yeah, and then it was 7 years of no's and failures and like barely keeping the lights on or whatever. And we're like, okay, that's cool as long as you get to the end, you know, because you have $1 billion company, now that's a good story. And it's really hard to understand what that feels like when you're in it, when you don't know the end of the story yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wish that was something that people talked a little bit about more, all the stuff that you have to grapple with when things aren't working. And I think most of us could trust that there will be an after a little bit more, you know, instead of turning so much of that on ourselves of like, you made mistakes, you failed at this, which the perspective I have now, where things are moving even in that dimension, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
ah, great plot point, Christy. But in the middle, it was so hard. And um, that really deep work of having our own back and looking at like the scared, sad part of ourselves. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the rubber meets the road, is not where it feels like everything's fun and easy and makes us money. It's where it feels like nothing is working and we're quite sure that we have put our ladder against the wrong wall. That's where it really comes in. And
Yeah.
So I would probably help her, you know.
Understand that more.
All she needed was some like love and compassion and like you're doing
Yeah.
a real good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Beautiful. Well, so what I would want to know now is when people are like, okay, I need to know more about this woman. She's amazing. How can they find you on
Well,
social media and website and stuff?
yes. So I did say I was like, I'm renegotiating my relationship with Instagram. Except if you send me an Instagram DM, I am there. Like I will always have it to connect with people. Those like actual connections of like, what's your business? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I, from such a varied background, I guess, and experience, I supported a bunch of like really big companies in their marketing and things like that. I have like a really robust offer suite of how we can work together if you're looking to really transform your brand, your online ecosystem, your messaging, copywriting, or, all of
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. And usually it's kind of this custom creation. I have a few packages, and often you're like, get in a thing and talk about it and figure out what's
Mm.
actually going to be best for you. So that's a really cool place to connect. I think probably the best place to start. My website is CristyLeeDuce.com. It exists now, which is a major victory. And on
Yeah.
Instagram, I have like a bunch of free things and stuff that are coming out pretty soon. So that would be, it's at Cristy Lee Duce.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Cristy with no H. Cristy. It's very phonetic, not like revolutionary.
Yeah. I love
So
it.
yeah, I would love to see your people there because I know you, so I know your people must be amazing.
They're pretty cool. I like
Yeah.
them. Um, so I'm gonna keep them for a while. No, I'm gonna share them actually. Um, I was saying that about Annalise. I'm like, yeah, she's all right. I'm gonna keep her for a while.